There's nothing like pro wrestling, is there? Like
No,
just
nothing.
the sheer, like how the lines of reality and unreality
Yes.
just kind of blur. There's nothing like it.
I kind of view it as a Venn diagram of the real world and the imagination.
Hmm.
And like where they intersect is the wrestling ring. Like you're seeing a fictional world in real life in front of you.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Comics Cube. Today we're talking again to Rob Schamberger about SchambergerLabs.com. Hi, Rob. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Different background over there.
Yeah. I I move my studio to different spots in the house depending on the time of year. Right now I'm in the attic, and the attic gets real hot in the summer, so I moved downstairs to we have a sunroom and it's beautiful, but then that gets real cold in the winter. So now I'm back up here.
The seasons, something I
Yeah.
cannot relate to. You've had
It's
a
just always nice there, right?
no, I mean, it's either the sun is out or it's raining.
Okay.
And when the sun is out, it's really out. So
Yeah.
you had a big announcement to make a couple of weeks ago. I saw
Yeah,
that.
I finally launched SchambergerLabs.com. It's the public face of the latest stage of my career. It's my entire library of WWE art available as prints. So over 360 different prints, and also have made all of my available original paintings available through there as well. So there's over 200 paintings there, with new stuff going up every week, and all fully licensed. It's all official, and it's really exciting.
There's a big backlog, I'm sure, and and of paintings that you've already made.
Yeah, it's and it's cool like what people are going after, because as an artist I'm more interested in what I'm doing right now than what I did years ago or even months ago. Like every painting I do is informed by everything I did before, so all I look at with my old work is how I could have done it better. But a lot of the old stuff people are really going for. It's something I learned early in my career is don't correct people when they tell you they like something.
Absolutely. You ever find it weird how fans who aren't artists, they really can't tell the difference. They don't know, like, I mean, you know how you've improved, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
probably couldn't tell. I probably wouldn't be able to tell.
And people have been into my work for years. So they like the older stuff because they liked it back then, right? It's
Mm.
long enough now. I've been with WWE for 7 years. It's nostalgia for a lot of people now. And I'm sure there were people that would come up to Jack Kirby when he was working on Thor and Fantastic Four and saying, "Man, I loved your stuff on the original Golden Age Captain America a lot more." And I'm sure Jack was like, "Yeah, thanks, but I'm really digging what I'm doing right now."
I'm
Or
I'm sure
when
you felt that way when he did,
Sienkiewicz.
yeah, New Gods, when he did New Gods too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People were like, "What's this style?" Or I was just reading Fantagraphics has been putting out collections of all of Alberto Breccia's work,
Hmm.
and they just put out his Eternaut series, and it's wild that that was canceled because the readers hated the art so much. And I'm like, what is wrong with these people? Like, I'm looking at this like, I'll never be this good. It's all taste. It's something that's been making the rounds again right now. That uh, there's a local guy here in Kansas City that has like one of the most developed palates of anyone on the planet. He's like one of 4 people that has like this super sensory tongue. His name is Doug Frost, and he it's used to like judge different wine. Like he travels the world to give opinions on wine. It's wild, right? But he's always asked, like, what's a good wine? Like, how much should I spend? And he's like, personally, I never spend over $20 on a bottle of wine. He's like, good wine is wine that you like to drink. And I think it's the same way with art. Good art is art that you like looking at. And if someone connects with work that maybe I myself am no longer into, um, I'm not going to tell them, differently. Especially right now when that's how I pay my bills.
You think fans and critics overthink that sort of stuff?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
yesterday was listening to a Conan O'Brien podcast and with John Cleese, and they were talking about how people dissect comedy to try to figure out what makes something funny.
Hmm.
And Conan had a great line where he said that the only way to dissect something is to kill it. And I think a lot of us criticize or even just I'll look at other art to figure out how it was made, but by doing that I'm not experiencing the art the way that the artist probably intended. And I think it's that way for all arts and entertainment. It's good to just experience the thing first, and then you can examine it later if you want to, but let yourself have that joy first, for sure.
Speaking of experiencing joy and dissecting the art, you've got an Undertaker Mosaic piece that was just out. As I know this is a weird segue, but I wanted to ask you how you come up with these mosaic pieces because they're insane.
Well, thank you. That was the 4th one I've done in that style, and
Who's the other one? I know you did Asuka and Bray Wyatt, and now you
there's a
did
New Day one
Undertaker.
as well.
Oh, you did the New Day. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. No.
It's fun. It's like a mix of sequential comic art, although I don't see it that way because it's not sequential art. It's not telling a story.
Mhm.
But it is a bunch of different images of that subject all brought together to make one cohesive piece, but also to give an overall feeling of that person's career. So like the next one I'm playing is Ric Flair, which I'm really excited about.
See, the thing is, you say it's not comics, but it is a sequence of images that tell a story. It does tell a story. It all takes place in a different time.
Yeah, it's I guess a little more abstract of thing. It's not a linear story. I just don't want to take away from what comic artists do with what I do. I don't see myself in the same vein, but it's definitely inspired by that.
Well, maybe I'll tag Scott McCloud in one of those and ask it if
Yeah.
it's a comic.
I guess it would fall under abstract storytelling, nonlinear abstract,
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
How'd you feel with Survivor Series when Taker came out and officially retired? Which I don't
uh
believe, by the way.
it's one of those things like we were just talking about with dissecting something.
Yeah.
There's also a thing where you have expectations for a thing. So I kept expecting because I go out of my way to not have inside knowledge about what is going to happen in WWE. I want to experience it the same way the fans do. But I was really thinking like, okay, he's gonna do the whole thing. He's gonna get up on the ramp, and there's gonna be an RKO out of nowhere. that, I was just expecting it, right? Because like Randy had just lost the title, he wasn't involved in Survivor Series. I'm like, yes, this is it. They had that documentary about the WrestleMania match between them. I just thought like, okay, this is where it's going. And he just walked on, walked on by, and I'm like, huh, okay. So maybe this was really it. And so of course, like I had this expectation, and because of that, I was maybe a little disappointed just because I thought a different thing was going to happen, but that was
Mhm.
on me. That was not on the beautiful production that they did. The Tupac hologram of Paul Bearer, just everything. It was wonderful.
I mean, you talk about experiencing it the same way fans do, but the fact is, a lot of fans do kill it. They dissect it too much. Like, we go to these dirt sheets, and I think we should learn our lesson by now that half the dirt sheets are wrong.
Yes, and the
but
other
we
half are guessing.
we never do.
Yeah, and there's those like Bruce Pritchard and Eric Bischoff podcasts where the whole thing, like every episode, is them telling you everything that you read on those things is wrong. And then the next episode, okay, so Meltzer said this thing. Like, no, like, and I've been misquoted enough. I have been like standing to the side where something is reported and how wrong it goes. Also, a lot of times there's people that are spinning things a certain way
Mhm.
that isn't necessarily true, but it's self-serving to that individual. There's a lot of things in there, so definitely take the Rashomon approach to it. That multiple people can see the same thing and recount it completely differently.
Mhm.
That's the majority of what that is.
You launched Schamberger Labs this close to Christmas.
Yeah.
Was that on purpose?
Yeah, I try to do a big thing around the Black Friday
Yeah.
deal every year, and this was my thing with that. Like, a lot of times I'll have like an exclusive print, or throw in a goodie for the first however many people that order, and I thought like this is the absolute perfect timing to have my whole catalog available. Like here's what's special, everything. Um, launch this brand new thing with that, and tying into the holiday shopping experience for sure.
Yeah, I think also like your paintings, your prints are the perfect gift for a wrestling fan. Like if
Yeah, and I've been
yeah.
having a lot of people reach out with that, either for their friends, for their kids. It's really cool that people interact with the art that way.
Yeah, I mean, they'd be great to hang up on a wall.
Yeah. Art
But
looks awesome on a wall.
art does look awesome on a wall. So, and you said that I think you said something like half of your e-commerce came in on one particular day a few days ago.
Yeah, when we launched that Undertaker Mosaic.
That's
Um,
insane.
yeah, people really love that piece, and it's still selling really, really well. So thank you, everyone.
Oh, people love the Undertaker. You don't say.
Yeah, yeah, especially right now. There is that
Uh,
feeling like, okay, it's over. Now all I have are my memories, and having this piece that celebrates all those memories. I think it really connects in a special way.
do you have a particular favorite version of the Undertaker?
Um, I I think I got the most joy out of the biker era. But then the return at WrestleMania 20 uh, was so special because of all that. But that biker era where you really got to see everything that he could do. He wasn't just playing that character. It was a little more of a Mark coming through,
Yeah.
especially in like the promos. Like my absolute favorite moment, other than the Jeff Hardy ladder match, which wow, that was tremendous. But when Kurt Angle came out and slapped him in the face, and it was this little thing he did he pulled the microphone away from his mouth and just mouthed out, "You done pissed me off, boy." It was so good, and that wouldn't have worked with the dead man. It was definitely something that was, he was able to do with that other character, that other persona. So when there was that hybrid in the Boneyard match, being able to see all the dimensions of him all in one match there, I love that.
Yeah, the Boneyard match was more biker taker, and all of a sudden he did a teleportation resurrection thing.
Yeah.
Well, like, this match is awesome.
As soon as that I think, like, even while that match was going, I emailed my contact at WWE. I'm like, listen, I know you work with some other artists now, but this one is mine. This is me. Like, I'll let someone else do the Funhouse match, but this is all mine.
Did you does the joy of the biker taker translate to the paintings as well, or you?
Yeah, and even in this mosaic one, I really got to play with it. In the corner, he's on the motorcycle going, and I did all these uh Katsuhiro Otomo inspired speed lines, but added in a little bit of gray wash in there to make it look like the background is flying by. Again, don't really get to do that with the Dead Man character. So mixing it in that way. Also, there's just a little more subtlety to his facial expressions
Mhm.
that you can do than with the Dead Man.
Is there a lot more subtlety because there's a lot more range too?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
the dead man is just basically expressionless.
Right. To make that character work, he has to do that. He's a zombie that wrestles.
Man, I gotta tell you, when I was young, I literally thought he was a zombie.
Yeah. Awesome.
It's like, how is he not getting hurt? Is he actually dead? Oh my god.
Right. Terrifying.
Who is he? No, 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 keep him out for a count out.
Yeah. Don't let him get in the crowd. He'll eat someone.
Oh man, what about all the other prints? Is any of the old stuff, like, did anything end up spiking that you didn't realize was gonna spike, or?
Yeah, there's one that really surprised me. It was a painting I did of Sasha, Becky, and Charlotte for their WrestleMania 32 match.
Yeah.
And that one is performing really well, without any promotion or anything. It was like a lot of people were waiting for this print to be available again, and they've really been going for it.
That's not the only time you've done Sasha in that particular match too. You did that comic that we talked
Yeah,
about
the
last
Boom
time.
Studios one. Yeah,
Yeah. That's it was a great match. It was probably the best match on the card that night.
I definitely the most memorable. It was. I don't know if it was the first time, but the biggest time of the women having like grand entrances. It
Yep.
really hadn't been done that way up to then. A lot of times it was just like, here they come down the ramp for their battle royal or whatever, or just their music playing and they come down the ramp. Like this time, there was a lot of production that went into it for each of them. It was really special, and we were at that show, and my wife just started crying. Seeing
Yeah.
powerful women being represented that way just meant so much. And it was um, the next time when they were in Orlando. I want to, I think Orlando, and there was a big women's match there, and it was the one with Charlotte with all the fireworks that they use all the time. Uh, that entrance, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, my best friend was with us that year too, and he's got daughters, and he started crying. He's like, my girls could do anything. That was really powerful. Like what they're doing there. It's very important to a lot of people.
I heard that when Mattel came out with the toys for that, they forgot that Becky was in the match. and
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
they didn't make a Becky action figure. And then, a few years later, Becky was Becky.
Yeah.
It's just it's crazy how things can evolve, right?
Oh, for
And
sure, and even her as a performer, she was still putting the pieces together. She was doing the whole steampunk thing then, but it wasn't quite clicking. Like
mhm.
they're just the pieces weren't there yet. And there were several times where I was backstage and saw her working with people from WWE about like she recognized there's like some piece that's missing, and then she figured it out when she's like, you know what, I'm going to start calling myself the man and start carrying myself like that, and boom, off to the races.
It's just really easy. You also have a new set of pieces for the four horsewomen back in NXT too.
Yeah, and that's
Uh,
performing really well. Well, every year around the holidays, I do a four horsewomen piece, and I was like, okay, what am I doing this year? Like knowing that Labs was coming too,
mhm.
like what do I do to make this special? And I had started the select series where I do four paintings of headshots, pretty standard headshots, but it's more about like seeing them all together. And I was like, oh, I should do them at the beginning of their careers in the select series, and it worked really well.
Are there people who just do a collection of the characters? Like they're like, oh, I have to have every four horsewomen one.
Yes, absolutely. There's that. And I'm seeing it right now with the sales on Labs. Someone will go and just buy all my Oscar prints, or like all of the Shawn Michaels prints. It's really fun to see.
I have a question for you.
I have answers.
Just demographically speaking, do you think you can tell me what the differences are between the audiences of the four horsewomen based on the people who buy your prints?
Um, I would say it's really even. It's men and women, and
Age group.
it's domestic and international. It
Mhm.
they're top stars, and
Yeah.
and so it's the kind of people that are into top stars of anything.
It's interesting because like I look at them and I think I see, you know, you could put them all together and I can see how they could appeal to everyone because no one person is going to appeal to everyone.
Yeah,
But if you put all four horsewomen together, I'm like, oh yeah, Bailey could get, a certain kind of person. Sasha can get a certain kind of person. You And then now that they've flipped the heel and face dynamic, do they still get the same types of people? I don't know. But
yeah. It's more evolved.
uh-huh.
Like the young girls that were really into Bailey are now teens and tweens themselves, or early 20s even, and they have a different kind of attitude, and this evolution of the Bailey character fits perfect with that. So and also like the constant like growing appreciation of Charlotte,
Mm-hmm.
like just how special what she does is. And that it's so funny. I was at a convention a couple of years ago, and a young girl came up, and I had like a display of all my prints, and Ric Flair was there, and she pointed and she said, "Look, it's Charlotte's dad."
Yes.
Like that's how a huge segment of the audience views her now. It's really exciting.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Do you think Charlotte gets a bad rap among the internet wrestling community?
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
The thing of like, oh, she's only there because of who her dad is. That might have got her in the door. I won't dispute that.
Yeah.
But that only goes so far, and there's a long line of second and third generation wrestlers that do not achieve how Charlotte does, and that's because Ashley, the woman behind the character, is
Yeah.
putting in the work.
Yeah, she's a I mean this in the best possible Scott Steiner way. She's a genetic freak.
Yeah, and so serious about everything she does. The last year at Survivor Series in Chicago, we were there, and I had that year's Four Horsewoman print, and for her to sign, and she comes up right after her match, and her face is all bloody from the match, and I'm like, Jesus, Ashley, like you can wait, and she's like, it's just blood. Like that's what a badass she is. I'm so impressed by her.
Like all of them, right? Like
Oh
all
yeah,
the
oh
horsewomen,
yeah.
they're just
I was
there's
there the night that Becky's face got all exploded, and then the next night in St. Louis, and the only thing she was upset about was that it threw off the timing of her program with Rhonda, but
and
otherwise,
it ended
like,
up working the best for her too.
oh yeah, absolutely. It was like uh the Bret Hart Steve Austin match with
Yeah,
Steve having the red mask, like,
that's exactly what I thought about it. Yeah.
yeah. I was standing there with a few executives at the monitor when that moment happened, and I turned to them and said, like, okay, there's your top star. And they were, I don't think they were quite there yet, like they didn't quite see it yet, but I sure did. Like, okay, this is all about her now.
No,
And for a couple of
absolutely.
years there, it was.
Yeah, when I think when she entered the Royal Rumble as a surprise entrant, I think that
Oh
was the
yeah,
loudest I'd ever heard anyone pop for a female superstar.
yeah. Everyone lost their minds, and we do a Royal Rumble party, and everyone here lost their mind over that. Just getting that in person feeling from people. Yeah, knew something special was happening, and like her match with Charlotte at Evolution right around
Mm.
then was just tremendous. I mean, they
Oh,
were
that
they were
was
brawling like Abdullah and Brody back in the day, man.
that was still the time when they were trying to force Becky into being a heel, right? And the fans
Yeah,
just
but a lot
wouldn't
of
boo her.
times, I don't know that it's forcing
Mm.
as so much as just kind of evolving the character. And I don't know that her time as a heel, if she hadn't done that, that she wouldn't have become that well-rounded character that she ended up being.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Of course, the night that she had her face busted up, you did a painting of that pretty much right away.
Real soon after, yeah. That and that was actually that year's Black Friday special,
Yeah.
because WWE rightfully has a no blood policy on products. So I was like, okay, the only way you'll get this is if you order X amount, during these few days, and I did really well that weekend. And I'll never release that one again. So like the people that got it, they're the only ones that'll have it.
Seriously?
Yeah, that's it. And
Is that
my
because you're not
past,
allowed to? Or
well, that, yeah, and also anytime that I say that like something is exclusive, I really try to honor that. So
okay.
like my past Four Horsewomen pieces are not available because of that. They were exclusives as well, and like the Select Series print sets, there's only 50 of them made, and when they're gone, they're gone. So yeah, I honor that.
That's interesting because my next question was going to be how's that particular print selling? 'Cause I imagine that one flies off the shelf. And I guess it did, and then you stopped
Yep,
selling.
that's it. It's gone. Poof.
So this whole no blood thing, is it retroactive? Like, so if you did a painting of Steve Austin at WrestleMania 13, you not be able to sell it?
Correct. And I learned that right when I first started working with the company. At WrestleMania 30, they had me do this giant mural of like all the great WrestleMania moments. And initially, in the planning of it, I was working with WWE's archivist, Ben Brown, on that. And like I was kind of like, okay, I'm pretty sure there's the no blood thing. He's like, oh no, like this is that moment. Like we need to have that in there. And put a mock-up together, and he showed it around to the executives, and they came back and he's like, okay, let's find some other moment from that match.
What moment did you end up using? That's the moment.
Yeah, it was we found a different angle. And I get it. I support it even.
Yeah.
There's a lot that we now know about bloodborne illnesses
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that makes sense. Also, I think for a long time there, it was done too much. And so, like, occasionally now when someone gets bloodied, like even like that recent Rhea Ripley Io Shirai match,
Oh
like
man.
it has to legitimately happen, and it means so much more. If anyone's like a fellow fan of wrestling history, back in the day in AWA, they put in a no blood policy because, man, they were a bloody territory. But
Yeah.
then they went over a year with no blood on TV. And then there was a match between the Rockers and I can never remember the name of the other team. Like Playboy Buddy Rose was one of them. I can't remember the other one. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sure people are screaming at me, but that was a bloodbath of a match. And the people in the crowd, having gone so long without seeing it,
Do you mean the
they
Rockers or Rock and Roll Express?
um it was the Rockers, and it was not the Rock and Roll Express they were against, because it was definitely Sean and Marty.
Okay.
And they were just like beat to hell by these olders. It might have been like uh Midnight Express. I can't remember, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. But like the crowd is like crying. There are women like crying in the crowd, um seeing this, because they'd gone so long they were no longer desensitized. And seeing these kids getting torn up like this, it meant something again. Like Bill Watts gets a lot of crap for his time when he was booking WCW, especially the thing of like no one can jump off the top turnbuckle or go over the ropes. Um,
Exciting TV.
well, it sounds
Yeah.
silly, but you only have rules there for storytelling purposes.
Yeah.
So it was like if the ref turned his back and someone like did a jump and the crowd
Mm-hmm.
lost their minds, because they were told like you're not going to get to see this. So now when it happens, it's special. And so I think some things currently maybe need to be pulled back, like the constant dives from
I
inside the
agree.
ring to out. It means nothing now.
I
It
agree.
means nothing.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the
Um,
things I like about Roman Reigns is that he can dive over the top rope if he wants to, but he does it like maybe twice a year.
yeah, you need to pull it back. Like the couple times Undertaker did it, we all think about that. Do we think about every single time that some dude now does it? No. The only time you really notice is if it went wrong, and it goes
And
wrong
it's
pretty
bad.
often. So why do it? I don't know. I'm not a wrestler. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just me as someone that watches it. Uh,
Is that maybe something like, maybe somebody like Finn Balor thinks, oh, the crowd is expecting him to do this move, so he should just give the crowd what they want? Or
there's that. You do get a certain reaction every time, but it's what they call the cheap pop.
it's a
It,
reaction from the crowd, but the TV audience is kind of like, oh, okay.
yeah, and as soon as it's done, no one even really remembers it. Yeah. What do I know? I don't know anything. I just paint wrestlers.
I actually do feel the same way, but
I am of the mind, as an artist, if I put every single thing on the page, it means nothing. It needs to be done for a reason. Needs to be a little more mindful of it.
so the last time we did this interview, you talk about leaving stuff off the page. You mentioned that John Cena print,
Uh-huh.
and you described it, and I said, "Oh, it reminds me of Magritte."
Yeah.
And you said, and then you explained that you were explicitly inspired by Magritte's "This Is
Yeah.
Not a Pipe." But I forgot to tell you this. The thing that I actually had in my mind was the one with the apple.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't actually
Yeah.
"This Is Not a Pipe." So I was feeling really smart that I guessed the inspiration. I was like, oh, but I was wrong.
But same artist with the same exploring the same themes. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's been selling other do you have a catalog of what's been selling really well, like like let's say the top 5 aside from the Undertaker
Top
one?
5. It's actually a cool feature of the website.
Okay.
Is like my cat's helping here too. This is Kima. I update her all the time. But the website, the featured prints area, is it automatically generates
Really?
on what's selling. So it's kind of a collaborative way that the audience is also showing, like, no, this is what we're into. So and it updates all the time. It's cool. Like someone will like I'll put out a new print, so like that Chauncey Blackheart one instantly, made it in there. But then other things, like I just did a sale last night, so some people stocked up on some things. The mosaic pieces are performing the best. Um, Oscar,
Because they're insane.
yeah, thanks. Asuka and Undertaker right now doing very well. I'm feeling like this weekend I'm debuting a new Alexa Bliss piece, and I'm pretty sure that'll do really, really well. But Roman Reigns still doing well. The recent one I did of him, people really connected to. It
Yeah.
was kind of inspired by the classic Scarface poster, but done very much in Roman Reigns' lane. Instead of like the solid black and white background, the black part is more of the traditional Samoan design. A little more grayscale in there because Roman's kind of in the gray area right now with his character. Um, that one has been performing well too.
People love him now.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
And it's the the thing that we all knew was coming. That like as soon as you turn him heel, the people that didn't like him will now like him. But I guess that's one of the few benefits of not having the crowd. That they can manage those reactions a little bit better to acclimate people to whenever crowds do come back.
right. That's what I always said to people who are like, "Oh, they should turn Roman heel." I was like, "The moment you turn him heel, you will start cheering him."
Yeah, and the people that are cheering him will start booing him.
That's what's going to
He'll
happen.
get the same reaction. It'll just sound a little different.
It's still going to be the exact opposite of what you actually want.
Yeah. But man, he is doing it so well. And I know that he is someone that really loves the psychology of pro wrestling. And there were times I would see him getting frustrated that he can only be so good as a face because they weren't letting the heels be as dastardly
Mhm.
as they could be at that moment in time. So I'm sure that's really informing what he's doing now. He because you can see like they're starting to whoever will beat him eventually. Well, it'll mean so much because he's such a powerful bad guy.
Yeah.
And you need an overwhelming bad guy to make the heroes look that much better, right? Like, how great would the X-Men be without Magneto? If the Fantastic Four had never had Galactus, how great would they have been, right? You need those kind of things to uh, make the heroes mean so much more. And I feel like, again, I don't know. I go out of my way to not know, but I feel like Big E is that guy.
I've heard that. I've heard that kind of
The,
speculation. I
the way they've been protecting him and slowly building him, and man, that street fight with Sheamus, um, I feel like they're slowly making Big E that guy, and I support this.
the
E
way
is the man.
the way that I always kind of fantasy booked it was turn Roman heel and give Daniel Bryan one last run, but I feel like that time has passed.
I could see Roman and Bryan at Mania.
Yeah. But Roman
But
would go over.
probably,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I thought too.
I think he's going to eat up KO and Bryan and maybe someone else before we get to E, like maybe E at SummerSlam. If I were in charge, I am not. But if
You've
I were, that's how I would play it out.
you've mentioned before too how Roman is just so visually striking, and I think uh I was watching the Survivor Series match with Drew McIntyre,
Uh-huh.
and the thing that really struck out in my mind was it's as basic a match as you're gonna get. It's like full of headlocks and rest holds, and it completely works. And a big part of
Yes.
that is because like they both look awesome.
They look awesome and they make every move mean something. Like they're two guys that they've made it click almost at the same time. I don't know that we're at the level of, I don't think it'd be fair to either of them to compare it to Austin and Rock, but I think it's real similar. And keeping them apart for a while,
Yeah.
so that when they do eventually collide again, man, it's going to mean something.
I mean, it's a weird thing too, right? Because they were fighting last year, but in
Yeah.
just in opposite roles, and now that they've switched roles, it's like a completely different match.
Yeah.
You
It's
completely forget
wonderful,
that it's
and
happening.
like they're continuing to put those pieces in there for Drew especially, and like his new entrance is just badass, and I can't wait to do my take on
I
it
was
in the
gonna say.
painting.
So,
Yeah.
two questions. Artistically, has Roman become more, you know, more fun for you to paint since turning heel, even though he basically looks the same?
There's more emotions there. It's what we were talking about with Dead Man versus Biker
Yeah.
Undertaker. There's more there now. Like Roman, his old look, it was very superhero esque. And so a lot of those elements were kind of expected of me with him, and certain ways of portraying him in a heroic vein. So now that he's a little more conflicted, he's got different motivations. Those are all things I can play with visually.
Now that he doesn't have the vest and you see all his tattoos, how hard
Ugh.
is it to paint all those tattoos?
They're one of the banes of my existence.
Bret Hart's hair, Samoan tattoos.
Yeah, getting all that in there, but putting in the time,
Yeah.
like again with this recent piece of him, I put in the time. Like that was where most of the effort went, and it really sang because of that.
So if you ever had to do The Rock or The Rock as Maui from Moana,
Or Rock versus Roman.
or Rock versus Roman.
A lot of detail. But for the longest part of my career, I tried to avoid that a lot of detail.
Yeah.
One is like an attention span thing, but also like I was more heavily influenced for most of my career by guys like Frank Miller and Mike Mignola and the other guys that were more going after like the high contrast stuff, Tim Sale.
Yeah.
But then I just started saying to myself, like, well, what are you afraid of, Rob? Like, why not go in there? Why not try that? If this other stuff is easy to you now, then you're not doing the right thing. If you're
That
not
makes sense.
struggling for each piece of art, you're not doing it right. So I've started adding, going less minimal and more maximal.
If things are easy, you're coasting. Is that the philosophy? Or
Right.
yeah.
Nothing worthwhile comes easy. So I challenge myself just as much um, as you see, like the subjects, even sometimes just
I mean,
different way.
I'm not an artist, but I mean, if you ever had to, for example, if somebody ever commissioned you, for example, to do Randy Orton's arm, and that thing is just full
Uh-huh.
tattoos, like how would you even do it?
It's it's a constant challenge, and like depends on the lighting, right?
Uh-huh.
Like what kind of things are showing up, what they're not, and ultimately with my approach to art, it's all about finding shapes. And what I mean there is like when light hits a surface, it creates different values around that surface,
Okay.
and so it creates shapes that way. Like there'll be the highlight and there'll be the darker shadows. All of those things are different shapes on there. Um, so I would look for on that like the different values of not just how the light is working its way around the arm, but how it's working with the various tattoos as well. So there will be some that I'll barely even represent on there. Others, in certain areas, there will be a lot of detail, and then some other areas, I'll just put some spot black on there, and build up the values that way. Uh, and it also depends on what medium I'm using. Like that's definitely the way I would go with watercolor.
Mhm.
With acrylic, it's more like you're sculpting with paint. You work from what's darkest to what's lightest, and you build up your values that way around it. Even then, like it's if you're using a brush or a palette knife, or a combination of both, all those kind of things are how you do that specific approach.
I think I get it.
That was like a whole year of high school painting class, so that I tried to sum up in a couple sentences. So don't worry.
Any artists listening to this will get it, and that's the
Yeah,
important
they're like, oh yeah, basic stuff, but yeah, acrylic you work dark to light, watercolor you work light to dark,
I never knew that.
with my modified illustration watercolor approach, I then rein it all in with ink,
Mhm.
most of the time.
As an artist, do you ever, like, when a wrestler changes looks, do you does something just immediately go off in your brain about how you're going to portray it? So I'm very specifically thinking of Drew McIntyre and his sword.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Y-
I'm definitely playing around with different ways that I'll approach that, especially like when he's holding the sword up above himself. I wish he was doing it with one hand. Whatever. I I can do a little bit more that way. I can when I do
This
it,
is how He-Man carries it.
yes, or Conan, especially because, and when I say that, I'm thinking for Zeta, right?
Yeah.
And then because see, like all of art is just problem solving, and so I study a lot of other artists to see how they solved certain problems. How do you use certain colors, compositions to get a certain feeling or a idea across? So I was like, okay, like I could definitely go with a Frank Frazetta type approach with Drew, which will rock.
Yeah.
It's probably what I'll end up doing. But like another artist that's more current right now, more breathing, is um, Matthias Bergara. I'm sorry, Matthias, if I'm butchering your name. He just recently worked on the Hellblazer series and did a series called Coda that Boom Studios put out.
Uh-huh.
Um, Especially like the work that he did on Coda, there's a lot there that I feel like I could be inspired by to bring into a Drew McIntyre piece as well.
Any other times that a wrestler has changed looks and you were like, "Oh, awesome."
Oh, sure. Like when Sheamus came out with the Mohawk, I was like, great, and I have to do another one of him. I'm joking. Sheamus and I give each other a hard time a lot.
Uh,
Like he for like a year, I didn't do a new piece of him because he's so good at his job, and his job is making people hate him, which means no one wants to buy art of him, right? And like that's something that Corbin and I talk about a lot. Like Tom, the guy that portrays Corbin, we're friends. He's a fellow Kansas Cityan, and he's like, why aren't you doing new work of me? And I'm like, dude, like everyone fucking hates you. Sorry, cuss, but everyone hates you because it's more than just hating him. Like they effing hate him. But I'm like, you're
Corbin
doing
is
your
so good
job
at
real
his
well.
job that I hate him.
Yes, and or like right now with AJ, I can't really give away art of AJ right now, even though everyone universally respects him. But again, so good at his job, everyone hates him too. And you don't necessarily want to hang something up in your house of someone that you hate, right? Um,
It's because when
So
AJ is a
sometimes,
heel, he's just really annoying.
yeah,
He's just really
and
annoying.
people don't necessarily want that energy in their room. Yeah, I still sell some of him, but and he came up and he asked me like, he's like 2-3 shows now, Rob. You haven't had anything new for me to sign. What's up? And I'm like, AJ, you're too good at your job. And he's smiling. He's like, my man. And so like the next time I saw him and he walked by, and like, still no pieces for me. I said no. He's like, yes.
When does who are the heels that have bypassed that? Like this,
Obviously Roman right now.
yeah.
And Rollins typically actually did better for me as a heel than as a face.
People
It's
loved
a weird,
Rollins as a heel.
huh?
People loved Rollins as a heel.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's a weird dynamic with him. When Becky turned heel, all of a
Mhm.
sudden I just started selling tons of her stuff. Um,
She was a face again a few months later.
yeah, yeah, and then we were really off to the races.
Yeah.
But there are some Piper historically.
Yeah.
Really most of his career, Ric Flair was a heel.
Mhm.
And he's a guaranteed seller for me. There's definitely people like that.
Alexa Bliss, of course. You,
Yes, of course, Alexa.
yeah.
Um, I wasn't really. I was just starting out when towards the end of Edge's run. Um, but like he was just doing gangbusters for me back then. And he was mostly in the heel persona, or sorry, in the face persona then. But
Yeah.
like when he turned heel, that's when he became real special.
Yeah. I agree.
There's certain people like that where there's like an energy to them. It's not even so much the cool heel thing. There's some of that, but I think it's just like a compelling character, right? Like one of the top selling toys is Thanos. uh it's a thing, like Jim Starlin, this new recent act of his career has been all those Thanos books. There's something to it.
Yeah, Thanos is a guy that people can relate to, and he does also look cool.
Yeah.
I think also like if you're talking artistically and visually, I remember a big debate at the time when Edge and Christian broke up, being that Christian and Edge are comparable to each other in terms of skill and talent. It's just that visually speaking, one of them was Edge.
And yeah, there was something in the eyes
Yeah.
too. That's like where people make most of the connection is how the person is like selling their reactions with their eyes, and Edge is just tremendous at that.
Do you think fans don't know that though? Like I don't I think I hear wrestlers a lot of the time talk about subtle facial expressions or things that only other wrestlers would notice, and I never hear fans saying things like, "Did you see the way his eyes moved?" or whatever.
Yeah, it's really base psychological stuff.
Hmm.
And it's not really what you're paying attention to when you're watching the match for the fans. I guess it'd be like if you're at a stage magician show,
Yeah,
you're just watching the tricks. But if there's another magician there, they're like, "Oh, look at that little thing he did there." Something like that. Or I'm sure with musicians too. Um, the way that you or I would watch a Metallica show would be very differently from how a
Uh,
member of U2 would watch a Metallica show, right?
oh, they got people on the side helping them out for
Yeah. Doing the old Beach Boys wrecking crew trick.
What do you have planned for Christmas for Schamberger Labs?
um, right now, just because of like shipping times and stuff, if people order stuff, we're at the point now where I can't guarantee that they'll have it in time for Christmas. They likely will, but I can't guarantee it. So I'm
Mm.
not doing any big pushes right now, just to as a customer service thing. Um, but for the coming weeks, like I'll still be releasing a new thing every Sunday. So Alexa Bliss this coming Sunday, at the time that we're recording this, I don't know when it'll be up, but at the time we're doing this, and then there's a new Roddy Piper one after that,
Yeah.
and the Sunday I believe after Christmas, I forget where it falls in the week, but there will be a Undisputed Era Select Series wave, and then the week after that will be a new Sasha Banks. So that'll be like the first piece released in 2021.
I
We're
see the
this close to
Sasha
2021. We're almost there.
I see the Sasha Banks one you're working on.
Yeah.
It looks supernatural. It almost looks Undertaker like. What's that about?
Well, that's just where it was at in the progress at that point. I'm doing that one all watercolor, like no ink or other elements in there. So it'll be real similar looking to my most recent Io Shirai piece.
Mm-hmm.
For that was a very popular one, so I think people will dig that approach to Sasha as well. And then after Sasha, forget what I'm doing after that one. Oh, Dexter Loomis. I'm going to do a Dexter Loomis one, maybe all acrylic. I'm leaning towards that right now. And then the Ric Flair Mosaic. So there's a lot of stuff coming up. And then I'll give you an exclusive. The Select Series wave that comes after that, I'm currently planning will be all women legends. And I'm not going to give away who's in there, but that's the theme of that wave. I'm pretty excited for that.
How many would be in the wave?
4. There's always 4.
There's always 4.
Yeah.
Okay. Will we be stratified?
Maybe. There's definitely going to be ones that people are going to be excited for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right. There's got to be one person who's got to be in there.
Yeah. Maybe my first. Well, no, it'll be my second solo piece ever of one of the entrants that will make a lot of sense when people see it.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
Here's another question I have. Do you ever find it weird which legends sell and which ones don't? Like, I'm really surprised. I don't think I've seen one of. I don't think I've seen a painting of yours of Jimmy Snuka, and I don't know if you have, but I haven't seen it if you have, and I'm like, and I would.
I have.
You have. There
Yeah.
would be more, I think.
There was a lot of controversy around that man. And,
yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. And I don't know what's true, what's not, but I try to avoid certain things.
Okay, yeah, I'll just cut that out.
Yeah. It's whatever. It's fine if it's in there.
Because I just remembered it because you were talking about Roddy Piper.
Yeah.
And
yeah. And I met him. He had a huge hand. Like that was like my memory. Like it engulfed my hand.
what about legends like Andre though?
Andre, I don't know what it is. Ton of respect. People see it, they respond really well, but I don't necessarily move a lot. Especially my latest one, I was like, come on, guys, I killed it on this one. It was like Andre as a kaiju destroying Tokyo. I went all out on that thing. And I think it's also we're so far removed from Andre's best days. Even Mania 3, Andre was in pretty rough shape. So a lot of the people that had great memories of Andre in his prime, most of that's not even televised.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it was when he was touring for the NWA, when WWF or WWF loaned him out to various promotions. So a lot of that is more the legend of him than the like physical having watched him. I think there's some of that plays in there. Yeah, I would love to be able to do more of him. He's fascinating subject to paint, and I will. It's just there's not as much demand for him as there is, say, for Eddie Guerrero. You can't make enough Eddie
Oh,
Guerrero.
no, no.
Yeah,
There's just something about the way there's just something about Eddie after he died in a way that nobody, I think, who has died has kind of resonated with the fans.
yeah, and I think it was because he was like at his absolute best right before,
Yeah.
and the suddenness of it, and the real world arc of how he had gotten his life back under control. But the damage apparently was done. But man, I know it destroyed me when when he passed. But and now like that he's such an influence on so many top stars, and
Yeah.
everyone like is very obvious about that. So like anytime you see a frog splash, pretty much everything Sasha does.
Peyton
There
Royce.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's so much influence that he has on today's talent, rightfully keeping that alive.
That's yeah, it's just Eddie Guerrero was so good. Like I was watching some of his old matches and I was like, I completely
Oh,
forgot how good this guy was.
so good. Just every little thing he did perfectly.
And
It's upsetting how good he was, and to have it cut so short. But to have been there during that time, like watching it, was tremendous.
in my memory, I had him pegged as a high flyer. And then I'm rewatching these and I was like, I completely forgot how good he was if he was on the ground.
Yeah, I want to say he was a pretty accomplished amateur grappler
Yeah.
before getting into pro wrestling. But yeah, like his stuff with Kurt,
Oh
forget
my
about it.
oh my god.
So good.
The match with Brock.
Yeah. And like speaking of the lineage, like that final program there with Rey Mysterio and Baby Dominic,
Yeah.
who's your daddy, and that's even still resonating right now. When they brought up and people were groaning, I'm like, "What are you talking about? This is fantastic."
I
People
like
complain that there's no continuity. Here's this, here's a payoff, man.
I like to tell people who didn't watch that ladder match that Dominic was hanging from the from the ceiling. Like, oh yeah, Dominic was hanging, and then they had to go retrieve him.
When there was that thing about who Hornswoggle's dad really is, I'm
Yeah.
so upset they didn't have a Hornswoggle on a pole match, and like whoever won was actually his dad, like King Solomon style. I've told Dylan that, and he doesn't think it's funny, but I think it's hilarious. Because you can just picture him all wiggling up there, right?
He would totally sell it too.
Oh yeah.
Every single bit of it. Uh, well, okay. One more question. Visually speaking, nothing to do with their acting ability or anything. Can you name 5 wrestlers that you think would look great in a superhero movie?
um Well, Sasha just recently proved that in Mandalorian. Um,
You know, a lot of wrestling fans thought she was going to play Ahsoka Tano.
yeah, it's like y'all didn't see the casting announcement. Okay.
I'm like, you guys know Rosario Dawson was cast too, right?
Yeah, she'd be too young. Um, uh, uh, Ricochet, of course. He is, like the real life thing. Rollins. Um, so I feel like we need a couple bigger ones in there. Like I feel like if he wanted to and he really proved it in the Boneyard match, like Undertaker having like a role as a heavy, like more so than like Kevin Nash and Punisher, but like as a like a terrifying big guy.
Undertaker is the saint of killers.
Yes, yes, perfect. The scowl and shooting some guns. That's
Yeah.
perfect. Um, let's see, one more. I feel like um probably just because I know how hard she works at her acting skills as well. Lana would
Okay.
do really well, but beyond that, the subtlety of Io Shirai
Oh man.
would rock. The like some of the almost seriously artistic promos that she's been doing, like the stuff where she's underwater or the lighting upside down, and then again her physical ability on top of that. Um, Io Shirai could rock it, man.
Io Shirai, that's another thing where, visually speaking, she was already visually dynamic before when she was a face. And then she turned heel, and I imagine the opportunities
Tremendous.
for you just opened
Oh
up with that.
yes, the how thoughtful her entrance is. She has the bangingest music in all of pro wrestling right now. Like that thing rocks. And yeah, just this whole transformation of her character, like everything clicked there to the point that there's an argument that she's the best all around pro wrestler in the world right now.
Right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Especially, um, it's one of those things like you can also say that about Asuka now that they gave up on trying to like force her to do English promos. Like, let her do these amazing Japanese promos. You can see how good she is. You can get the gist of what she's saying, and then she'll throw a couple words in English there at the end just as punctuation. But man, like Asuka gets it on another level. And I feel like uh, the no fan era, this
Hmm.
pandemic era, Asuka has really been the MVP. I don't know what it is. Like she's such a big persona that you don't need the crowd reaction with her. It's just as entertaining on TV. She fills a room just on her own.
She's got so much
Um,
energy.
yes, and uh, her eyes,
Hmm.
and the way that she reacts to things is like she's in this performance, like she's living it, and she doesn't come across as a person performing as this character. She comes across as that
The
character.
character itself, yeah.
Yeah, it's so good.
I always thought the nail in the coffin for Asuka's streak was when she botched an English promo one time, like on the way from Royal Rumble to WrestleMania. I have nothing to prove that whatsoever, but I remember her botching the promo, and I was like, oh, that's it, she's done.
It took them a while to figure it out. Like they were really trying to force her to do the English promos and thinking that was the way to make it work for her. I feel like where it started to really work was when it was her and Miz together in Mixed Match
Yeah.
Challenge, and she would do her promo in Japanese, and then Miz just reacting to it, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome! Like they got something there, and they figured out how to do it for her as a solo act, because there is something a little um, not awesome about like saying that she has to have a translator or whatever. Just let her be who she is. Like, uh, let that personality that Kana has
Yeah.
come out as the character Asuka, and they've made that work for sure.
Any more announcements for Schamberger Labs coming up?
Um, yeah, check back regularly. Every Sunday, there's a new piece that goes up. My newsletter, subscribe to that. You get first access, and you get a discount code for like the first 24 hours that print is available, and you'll get information before anyone else on what's coming up. And yes, there is a phase 2 of Schamberger Labs coming.
Oh,
I cannot talk about what that is yet. Things are being finalized on that. maybe around February, March, I'll be
Okay.
able to talk about it. But it'll be big and it'll change everything all over again. And thank you to everyone that has made this launch such a massive success. And it has been a massive success. Like when I sent my November numbers to WWE, I got a lot of exclamation points back.
Oh, that's
They're
awesome.
very happy. This thing is a success.
That's
Thank you.
awesome.
Yeah.
One last question before we
Sure.
go. Can you talk about the time you were on WWE TV?
I have been on a few times. The biggest one was
Okay.
with Stephanie McMahon and
Yeah.
Triple H. And that was it was a last minute thing. And when I mean last minute, I mean like 60 seconds. Um, I was painting backstage and they were going to be doing this segment that then set up the next thing that then set up to people will remember it. It was a massive tear apart between Undertaker and Brock Lesnar. And then like, you know, spilled into the backstage afterwards. But anyway, to start it off, it was going to be a thing of like Steph and Triple H talking, and they see Paul Heyman. They cut to that. Um, so where they were going to be coming through was where I was painting, and I could see them setting up the shot, and I'm like, dang it, like I'm gonna have to tear down so they can do their shot. And that's just the way it is. You know, they're making a show, and Steph sees it, and it was her and Triple H Paul that brought me into the company, and she's been so awesome. But she like stopped and said, "Hey, let's start this off with us talking to Rob instead. Like, let's put him over. We love what Rob does." And they're like, "Do you need to clear that with Vince?" And she's like, "No, I'm Stephanie McMahon. We're just going to do this." And I had been outside painting that day, and it was in like August in Kansas City, which is
Oh.
really hot and humid. See, like, and normally when I'm backstage, I'm at least have a suit jacket on.
Mhm.
And that day, I had happened to accidentally leave it in my car, and so when you're in the back, you have to have this sticker on that you're supposed to be there, right? Because like I don't have like a permanent um, credentials, so they give me a visitor sticker for security. And so I had been outside, real hot and humid, and like right before we go live, and it was live. She turned to me and she's like, "Oh, you need to take that sticker off because they're always worried about people counterfeiting them." And I'm like, "Okay." So I take it off. I don't know that there's a sweat spot right there, perfect circle. No one tells me because that's the kind of thing the people backstage in WWE live for is, is something going awry like that. So, because like if I'd had the jacket, it would have been covering it, no problem. I just happened to not. So we do the segment. They go on. I thank them both a lot for that because it was a huge moment. My family happened to be in the crowd that day, and they
Uh-huh.
didn't know that was coming. I didn't know, so but it's cool for them to be there in person for that. But as soon as they walk away and the camera guys all walk away, the the people that I work with backstage, they're like, "Hey, looks like you have a mustard spot on your shirt, Tiff." and, and I look down, and it is so plain right there on the screen. And people were asking me like, "That's the best shirt you could have on when you're standing there with Stephanie McMahon." And it really reinforces something that you hear all the time is when you're at especially a live TV thing, always be ready to be on live TV. And so I have always had the jacket with me. A lot of times I'll even have like a change of pants and a backpack just in case something went wrong. Yeah, I learned a lot that night.
So the backstage culture, it really is like a lot of making fun of each other and like,
Very playfully, very
yeah,
lovely.
very playfully. I imagine the entire time that's going on, they were all like, hee, look at Rob.
They so were. Like I could hear them giggling, and I thought they were just like making fun of like how nervous I was because I was very nervous.
Yeah.
Because I mean, yeah, I'm standing there with Steph and Triple H on live television with my painting, and also like right before we went, like Triple H told me the thing like never look directly at the camera, like just talk to us, and I'm like, oh okay, and then like right before we start, Steph says also don't move your hands, and it's because people when they're nervous they try to talk with their hands, and it's too uh obvious to the
Yeah.
viewer. But so to me all I'm thinking is like just stand there rigid, right? And so like so I'm standing there all rigid with this sweat spot on my shirt looking like a deer in my headlights, and they're like asking me questions, and like they're performing, I'm not a performer, so it, I don't know that it was the best outing, but also I know that that's all in my head. Like I'm sure people watching didn't really notice any of that except for the sweat spot. I heard from a lot of people about the sweat spot.
I, I believe that's called paying your dues.
Yes.
What
You
would
know, it was verite, folks. It was verite. It's real life.
what would happen if one day, you're backstage and then they ask you to take a bump?
They wouldn't. I have a heart condition, so
Okay.
I would not be able to be cleared for that. Like otherwise I would say yes because I know what the bump bonus is. But
Really?
yeah.
I didn't
But
realize there was a bump bonus.
yes, there is. And I learned that from like some of the other staff that have like been there for like whenever you see like those merch stand battles or like the battles on the concourse, sometimes they get thrown aside and they're like, yeah, bump bonus. Um, so yeah, I'm not cleared to be able to do that stuff, but I would. As long as nothing involves my right hand, I can't make money without that thing.
You know,
Um,
you know what I just realized? You started 7 years ago, so you were there perfectly in time for the entire Daniel Bryan saga.
yeah, yeah. Like at WrestleMania 30, we were up in Warriors box,
Yeah.
and so like when both times when Bryan came out, watching those yes chants, watching 75,000, however many people were there doing that, it was kind of uncanny seeing that. It was almost like something out of like a 28 Days Later movie. It was like watching humanity move this way. It was yeah, it was uncanny.
Can you kind of so because I think that was the longest storyline I've seen them do in a long time, pretty
Yeah.
much from SummerSlam to WrestleMania. Can you kind of compare what that was like to something like Becky's?
Um
Would you say it was similar or?
eh, yeah, I would. There was a lot of organic stuff happening there.
Mhm.
The strength of the performer. I've had people in WWE tell me that was not the plan for Brian, but I don't know the way that it played out on TV. I don't know.
So if you're as lost as the rest of us, because that's what we heard too. Like he's supposed to fight Sheamus at WrestleMania 30, and
Yeah,
but I'm like, this is you couldn't write this better than this.
yeah. But they're yeah. I get a lot of grief for this. I don't know if I said this last time I was on the show. Vince McMahon is the most successful artist in human history. If you stop and think about it,
Mm-hmm.
the amount of content he's been writing for as long as he's been writing and as much money as it's generated, and it all
I
comes
feel
back
it.
to him from like 1974 to now. He has been the one telling this story. And there have been moments where they definitely plan things out that well. WrestleMania 3, of course. That whole arc. And I feel like the whole women's evolution thing as a whole,
Mm-hmm.
from when they first brought the Sasha, Becky, and Charlotte up through to Becky beating Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania in the main event. I feel like those are the kind of magical things that Vince and his team, uh, everyone involved, are able to do. So I don't know if like that wasn't the original plan, but I also feel like Vince is very good at saying like, well, let's see how this plays out. Yeah, we've got a plan A, but maybe plan B becomes plan A. And I don't know. It really felt so organic and natural, with Brian especially. It was also cool at Mania 30, like before the show, we were up in the friends and family area, and there was this older woman with a baby, like her grandchild, that she was trying to move a couch in the area, and she's doing that like while holding a baby too, and all these big burly wrestler types are standing around not doing anything. I'm like, well, damn it. And I get up and I help her move this couch, right? And then later that night, I'm like, oh, that was Brian's mom. Yes, you see her front row. And then after the show, on the bus back to the hotel, she was in the seat next to us, and she was so proud, like just beaming with what her son had done. And then sitting in front of us were was the Bella's mom, so her son-in-law.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And like watching them having these interactions, and they were involving us in the conversation. It was wonderful and special and real. Like, yes, like the what they're doing out there is a performance, but could you imagine seeing your son getting that reaction
Mm-hmm.
from 75, 80,000 people? Geez, it's amazing.
There's nothing like pro wrestling, is there? Like
No,
just
nothing.
the sheer, like how the lines of reality and unreality
Yes.
just kind of blur. There's nothing
I
like it.
I kind of view it as a Venn diagram of the real world and the imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And like where they intersect is the wrestling ring. Like you're seeing a fictional world in real life in front of you. And there's a French philosopher, Roland Barthes, that did a long piece about pro wrestling and how it's actually one of the purest art forms that humanity has. That it's just the same as Greek theater under the moon. Like
Yeah.
this solitary source of light coming down, and watching these performances in front of you and interacting with them as the crowd, and crowd reactions informing what they do. So you're interacting with fiction in a way that we don't get to with anything else. It's yeah, amazing.
You know who said the same thing about pro wrestling? Alan Moore.
Really, that's perfect.
Yeah. He didn't say if he actually watches pro wrestling. He was just like, oh, pro wrestling is basically Greek theater. It's actually very compelling. Like,
Yeah.
Alan Moore?
I'll take it.
I'll absolutely take it.
Yeah, especially with when you think about what he did in Promethea. Um, yeah, I'll take it.
Thank you, Rob. This was great.
Wonderful. Thanks again for having me
Congratulations
on.
on Schamberger Labs. I'm very happy for your success.
Thanks so much, man.
Hope to have you again sometime, maybe for
Well,
phase 2.
yes, we'll
All
be
right.
here.
Awesome.